Alessandro, great to see you as always.
Hey, Paul.
And
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you too.
thank you for making a bit of time to come and have a chat with us. I know you've been really pretty preoccupied with things just recently. Um, when we spoke a little while ago, you said to me that the more we try to get stuff done, the less likely we are to get stuff done. I mean, I think a lot of people would disagree with that. I mean, why do you feel that way? Just tell us about that.
Yeah, I know that's interesting. Well, it's more like almost like a philosophical question that has been going out, going around my mind. But it's also connected to things that I read. I'm very, even though I'm a sort of in business and finance and an entrepreneur, I'm also very interested in sort of more philosophical and spiritual
Yeah.
and psychological aspects of business and finance as well. So connecting those different parts of life, and it's almost like one of those big paradoxes in life. And you keep reading about the sort of the spiritual leader saying that it's all about non-attachment, detachment, and the fact that whatever you put into the universe, it comes back. But if you try to push things forward, or if you try to grab things, then it's more likely for those actually to go away from you. And so this is something that I find extremely fascinating. And I wonder myself, it's really a question that undermines, probably the fundamental definition of success as well, right? I grew up in sort of, working in finance and in investment banking, and it's all about, getting the next client, getting the next deal done, getting the next million invoiced, and so you need to have that sort of go get attitude, get things done. And so I was fascinated as I learned more about this more fundamental questions, and more from a philosophical and spiritual point of view,
And
how
has
that
that
connects.
has that approach, that sort of spiritual approach, has that shaped how you see your job as CEO?
I would think so, and I would hope so. I mean, it doesn't mean that I spend time speaking about spirituality or religion per se, and I think that that's also big fundamental distinction to make between spirituality and religion. But I do believe that in my job as a CEO, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, in everything I do, there is always an underlying question of why am I doing it? And so that always brings me to the more fundamental truth. Am I doing it for myself? Am I doing it
Oh,
for
Well, well, let me
family?
let me
Yeah.
ask you that question then. I mean, why are you doing it? I mean, because building a business is, I mean, there are easier things to do in life than build a business, aren't there? I mean, so why is it? Why is it so important to you?
Yeah, that's another great question. Well, first of all, I really enjoy it. Um, I love the action, the teamwork, learning all the time, and working with amazing founders, working with amazing investors. So it's really enjoyable, and it gives me a lot of energy. And in terms of why I do it, I think the moment of truth was when I was working on sort of financing and advising on renewable energy projects, and I saw we went through a very difficult patch. It was 2014, and I actually asked the question to myself, and with my wife we discussed why are we doing this, and it emerged that it was really finding a way for business and finance in general to, sorry, my dog is barking, finding more purpose and more meaning in what I do as an entrepreneur. And it was like the realization that I almost had been living two different parallel lives. One trying to achieve success from a financial point of view, and the other one being trying to be a good person, as a son, as a father. And so for me, the meaning of why I'm doing it is I really saw the opportunity to do business in a way that allows myself, to keep learning, and allows myself and other people to really become the best, the best version of themselves. And I think that's in a way connected to the fact that we are not just very smart animals. I think there is more, to life, more meaning to life
Sure, sure.
than just being smart and doing, smart things.
Yeah, and let me ask you about that because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you've developed two businesses, isn't you? I mean, you've got an ethical finance business, which we can talk about in a second, but you also, I think, run an olive farm. I mean, how are those two things connected to this idea that you were just talking about?
Yeah, that's good. Well, in reality, we are involved with four businesses,
Right.
and I'm
Okay.
also the chairman of the local basketball team. So I have five initiatives that I'm involved with, and for some form or shape, leading. But so the connection between the ethical finance part and the farm in Italy, it's I mean, it's varied and it's not easy to see. But for instance, the example to give you is that through EthicalFin, we've been involved with some very innovative technologies that look at how to produce food in an efficient way,
Yeah.
but also looking at how agriculture should embrace more regenerative business practices.
Right.
And these concepts, keep emerging in our conversations because if you want to build a very sustainable and impactful business, you need to look at regeneration not only as limited to farming and our relationship to the environment, the local environment, but it's much broader. So how can we build businesses that are regenerative in the sense that are in favor of life, which includes also all stakeholders? And so through the regenerative principles that I saw in agriculture, the innovation that is coming up in terms of measuring biodiversity, measuring how regeneration can positively impact the environment and nature, I started to see how that could be connected to our farm. And so the other connection that I learned about is the sort of continuum that we have between the way that farming operates and therefore the way we treat the soil, the health of the soil, how that affects the quality and the yield of the crops that farming produces.
Yeah.
And the result is what is the nutrient content of that farming activity. So as an olive oil producer, I learned that there is a very strong connection between all of those aspects. So the biome, we call biome, the sort of the environment of the soil. The biome is also in our gut, and so there is probably a continuum in the way we farm, the way we produce products, and the way that those products can be helpful to our health, as opposed to be detrimental to our health.
Yeah, and let me ask you about that because I mean those are complicated connections, aren't they? I mean, it's not a simple, they're not. That's there's a lot of complexity involved in that. I suppose is what's going through my mind. How does that? I mean, how do you approach growing a business, building a business in with that kind of complexity? I mean, how have you approached that?
Yeah, that's a very good question and one that I've not really been thinking about. But I guess it's very, in my mind, is very spontaneous and growth. I think happens, naturally. In my experience, growth comes from a number of things. For businesses, you need to, you want to make sure that you have the right team because that's how you deliver, your product and services. And so, with my EthicalFin, business, we've gone through ups and downs over the years, but I can really see the quality and the commitment of the team, being very important.
So
But also,
what you're saying, let me just clarify. So what you're saying is
yeah,
when you've got a good team, the business grows better. Is that what you're saying?
yes, yeah, exactly. Because then, so if I look at delivering fundraising and strategic advisory services, that's very much connected to the quality of the people you have in the team, and the same with the olive oil business. If you don't have the right competent, committed, and reliable colleagues, that's very difficult to grow. But at the same time, the business doesn't operate by itself. You need to also find and engage and fulfill the needs of your customers, for first and foremost, because otherwise, if you don't have a customer base, you don't have you don't really have a product or a service to sell. So customers are extremely important, and so understanding the customer need and fulfilling those needs, I think, is extremely important. And in my experience, one of the elements that is very much connected to growth is to do with communication. And so with both businesses, I see huge value in ensuring that the market, people are aware of who you are, what you do. And so marketing, but not in the sense of selling something because you want people to buy your product or your service. It's also about the storytelling, making sure that people understand exactly where you're coming from, and understanding your positioning. So that's true for all the business I'm involved in.
Okay. So, I mean, what you're saying is that if I've understood this correctly, the growth comes from doing other things, appointing the right people, communicating well, etc., etc. How do you how do you know what those things are? I mean, is that as a result of your experiences in the past, or is that because you have some intuition? I mean, how do you know what those things are that you need to do to deliver that growth?
Mm. Well, first of all, it's working with the team, so it's not just myself, and so I feel that within our team we have a lot of experience, knowledge, and wisdom, and
Right.
so that's, I think, very, very important. The other thing that drives probably us, I would say, is the conviction and the ambition that what we are doing is needed and makes a lot of sense. So, with EthicalFin, we really see the need to catalyze more capital for solutions to social and environmental issues. So we read that every day in the news. And, coming from a finance background and being an entrepreneur and business person, I can see those opportunities out there. And so it becomes quite intuitive, I would say, to try and capture those opportunities.
Okay. And let me ask you about, I mean, that sounds great, and I'm sure it is great, but it also involves making decisions, what can be quite difficult decisions about what you do and don't do. I mean, how do you get your team on board with those difficult decisions? I mean, anyone can make easy decisions. It's the difficult ones that are a challenge. I mean, how do you deal with that scenario?
Yeah. So I guess it really depends on the situation, but thinking in sort of in the more recent months or days. So getting the team on board is, I believe, is all about empowerment and alignment, I would say. So I've learned over the years that is not necessarily about thinking, in my mind, what is the right thing to do, and what is the right decision for solving a problem, and then trying to get my team on board, and then having their help in delivering it. What I've enjoyed more and more, as I work, in several businesses and working with several people, is to try and involve as much as possible my colleagues, and so that's why I call it empowerment. So I feel that my approach is that of an entrepreneur who is working with other entrepreneurs. And that probably doesn't work with everyone. So I also have colleagues who are employed, by the business and therefore are there to, let's say, do what they're told. But, even in that situation, I really enjoy bouncing ideas and opening up to the problems. I'm always, let's say, surprised of the support and the friendship that really emerges when you speak frankly and openly to your colleagues. And that's probably, I would say, part of my evolution over the past 30 years since I started my career in the city.
Yeah. And I mean, you used the word evolution there. I mean, has your business evolved a lot as you've grown it? I mean, is it very different from when now from when you started out?
Yeah, so staying focused on ethical fin, we have had, I would say, yeah, several, strategic change of directions for sure. So when I started, it was 2008, and I was working on advising mostly Italian banks and specialist lenders on their funding strategies using their assets, because I used to work in securitization. I then moved into non-performing loans. And then, there was a significant change when around 2010, 11, I started working with two partners in Milan. And the model there became to advise Italian and international developers with funding their renewable energy projects in Italy. And so there was a very different model. And then with the team at the time, we had another strategic pivot, which was to try and become principal ourselves. So we started investing our time and our success fees alongside our clients to develop renewable energy projects. And we even looked at acquiring a business, creating a syndicate. So there were different changes in direction. But the most significant one, as I mentioned before, was when I really, together with my wife and co-founder Alexandra, where we really had this almost epiphany or midlife crisis, where we really wanted to connect our personal values with what we do. And I think that's really, really relevant. And then since then, I would say that the learnings have been varied. So one key learning has been to be less obsessed about what we like, but also working with. We help founders raise capital from investors. So when I started doing this, I got really excited and obsessed as an investor myself, about these founders and technologies. And at the moment, we're actually working also more closely with investors because we want to make sure that it's not only what we like, but it's also what investors, preferences and what investors are currently, looking for. So I think that's a fine balance, between acting as an advisor and acting as an investor. So that's a quite significant learning there.
Quite challenging, I'd have thought. Sometimes they could well be in conflict, couldn't they? Let me ask you about the people side. I mean, you touched on the importance of the team. I mean, give us your take on, in the context that you're in, how do you go about building a high-performing team? Because it's a competitive. I mean, I understand your focus on the kind of ethical stuff and climate and what have you, but it's still a very competitive market. I mean, how do you build a team that can thrive in that environment?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think it's it's really a matter of motivation, and uh, motivation can mean different things to different people.
Mm.
So uh, in the past, I used to think that motivation was most of the time just monetary, because that's let's say the learning I had in investment banking, where you are rewarded based on financial performance. But I think motivation comes from feeling part of an exciting project. So I believe that as a team, we are within Ethical Fin, we are building something that is bigger than ourselves individually, and is bigger than ourselves as a combined team. The other thing that I would say is that I would love to hear my colleagues' take on this, but finding that what we work on is aligned with what each one of us wants to achieve with his or her life, and so is finding fulfillment.
Yeah.
And I must say that with all the hard work and the challenges that building businesses entails, I still very much enjoy working with all my colleagues, and I would hope that's the same for them. And that's what I keep hearing.
Yeah.
But I would love for you to hear it directly from them.
Yeah.
So I think I would say that is the motivation comes from an inner alignment that each one of us
Yeah.
has,
Yeah.
and also understanding exactly what motivates each one of us. So I would distinguish between those colleagues who are very entrepreneurial and very, let's say, inspired by what Ethical Fin is doing. So you can see an alignment there between the organizational purpose and the individual purpose. So realizing the organizational purpose actually helps each one of us
Yeah.
thrive individually. And then those colleagues who are and I'm thinking about the olive oil business, where I have salaried employees, and you want to make sure that people working are also well rewarded for financially for their work.
Sure. Sure. And you touched a bit earlier on the importance of customers. I mean, let me ask you, in your setting, I mean, I'm thinking about the ethical finance thing here. I mean, what does a good customer look like?
Yes. So I would say that for the type of business that we carry out, where we advise mostly founders who are developing very disruptive innovation to address social and environmental issues. We also have the other side of the coin is, of course, the investors as well. So I would say that we have two categories of customers and clients. So then on the entrepreneur side, we I would say that the ideal customer and client is a founder or a founding team, which are extremely good at what they're doing, so expert in their sector. So we typically work in sort of solutions to energy or environmental issues, or food and agricultural innovation, and also education and health are areas where we've worked in the past and we're very passionate about. And so you want a team which is expert in what they do, and they work very well together, and they're very motivated by what they're doing. And so again, we want to have purpose-driven,
And
expert, and motivated people.
and
And
how do
yeah,
you how do you go about building relationships in that context? I mean, people buy from other people, don't they? I mean, so relationships in business are still very important. I mean, AI might change that potentially, but they're still very important. I mean, how do you go about building those relationships? Because what's interesting is you've got two very different things. You've got ethical finance and you've got an olive farm. I
yeah.
mean, both selling valuable products, but to completely different types of customers, I would have thought. So how do you I mean, what's your take on building relationships with customers that last for the long term?
Yes. Yeah, that's another very good question. I would say that relationships are fundamentally built on trust,
Yeah.
and building trust can take time. It's actually very, you can very quickly break trust, but relationship, I think, um, the best way to build a relationship is to build trust as quickly as possible.
So let
And
me ask then.
in
I
my
mean,
experience,
how do
is
you
really,
how do
yeah.
you do that? How I mean, how do you go about building that trust? And why do people trust you and your business? I mean, what is it that you do that builds that trust?
Yeah, I think it's really a matter of uh, delivering what you promise. So uh, being truthful, being transparent and authentic, and in promising what you can deliver.
Mm.
And so it means doing what you say you want to do. So if you promise verbally and contractually that you will deliver certain services, you want to be able to uh, deliver on that. And so I think that's also a matter of integrity as well. So, and being accountable and reliable as a service offering, a service offering.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's really what we try to do all the time.
Let
And
me
I think,
let me push you on that a bit
yeah, yeah.
because I mean most CEOs that I speak to would say something similar.
Mhm.
Deliver on your promises, do what it says on the tin. That's how you build trust. What is it about how you do it that's different though? Because most CEOs would say that. So how is it that I mean, what is it that you do that is different to what other people do?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think the key element is that we are trying as much as possible to establish a relationship to our clients. So, and when I talk about clients, I'm thinking now about EthicalFin's founders, corporate clients.
Yeah,
So we really enjoy becoming part of our client's team. And so that's something that we try to do as much as possible. So being as involved as we can in their decision-making process and in their strategic thinking and in their fundraising process and in their growth efforts. And so almost like becoming embedded into that. And the other thing that I would say I've learned, and I still keep learning about, is there is always in my mind, the concept that when you're running a business, you might have a conflict between your commercial interest and what is really in the best interest of your client. So of course, when you're discussing a new engagement, you want to ensure that you're paid fairly and the right sort of amount of money. So what makes our approach different and at the same time difficult and challenging is becoming very aware of that commercial conflict of interest
mm.
and being open and transparent with our clients about the money conversation, what they expect, the expectations, what we can deliver, so that we are, let's say, as aware as possible about their point of view. So putting ourselves in their shoes
Yeah,
and also inviting them to be in our shoes as well. So it's almost like building very quickly a very empathic relationship, which comes from trying to be always as authentic as possible.
sure, sure. And let me ask you about that authenticity piece. I mean, how important is it, would you say, to be that authentic? I mean, I know everyone sort of talks about authenticity, but in your context, what does that mean? I mean, in the context of ethical finance, for example, I mean, what does being authentic mean in that situation? I mean, just explain that because they're different things, aren't they? I mean, an ethical thing may or may not reflect your personal views. I mean, I mean, how do you build that authenticity and therefore the trust that comes with it?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's another interesting uh, point and question. I think it will, it very much depend on the people. Each one of us has different level of sensitivity to, how authentic or how, even
Mm.
how to bring, let's say, business conversations to a personal level. I think different people will have different perspectives. And I
Mm.
remember very clearly when I worked in an environment and I felt totally aligned with the concept that you want to keep totally separate your personal authenticity with your business hat, and keeping those two things separate. And so I think it's very important to respect that as well. And so that's for sure, a statement I would make. In terms of how to bring it about, I think it's yeah, trying to be yourself all the time, which means I think the difficult part of that is that we normally speak and deal, especially in business and in finance and in transactions. It's very much all about the brain, right?
Mm.
You want to look at the numbers, you look at the business plans, you speak
Yeah.
about strategy, the business, how the business is going to grow, what the revenues, monetization strategy looks like, which to me really connects to our brain. And being authentic, I think, is really about being much more yourself. So involving all of your being, as a person. So that includes our, fears, our weaknesses, our feelings.
Mm.
So that we speak about not only connecting to your, to your brain, but also to your heart. And I wonder whether, as the soul should also play a role in that. How is the soul involved in our, decision-making process? So it's really being
Well,
having
so,
a very
so sorry, let
holistic
me just
approach.
pick that up. I mean, how is your soul involved in your decision-making process? I mean, that's a really interesting idea. I mean,
I have no
how do
idea.
you do that?
I have
How
no
does that
idea, Paul.
work?
I have no idea. I have no idea how my soul is involved in my decision-making process. I wish I could answer that question, but uh, I would imagine that every time we are in the present moment, every time we are grounded, and every time we are acting with pure intuition and in flow, I would imagine that's when each one of us is acting in full alignment with everything,
Yeah,
brain, heart, and soul. If those are the components, I mean, I'm just assuming that those are the components.
sure, sure. And one of the things that's interesting about what you've said is, at the beginning you were saying, don't try too hard, it'll come to you. And now you're saying, focus on being authentically me. I mean, what is it, if when you look back on your journey, what is it that you attribute your success to? I mean, what are what is the factor that is making you successful in the way that you
Mm,
are?
very interesting. Um, I think that my experience has taught me that the biggest learnings have come from the biggest challenges and from changes in my situation or environment. So, just to give you some examples, I became an entrepreneur because I lost my job in investment banking,
Right.
during the global financial crisis. So there was an external event that triggered something in me, and I feel that the biggest moments of growth have come when I was outside, fully outside of my, comfort zone. And, I can
Right.
give you plenty of examples, some, also extremely personal. And I believe that, the biggest the challenge, the biggest, the
Yeah.
growth,
I mean, what you're
that you
saying
have.
is that being stretched helps you develop, doesn't
Yeah, being
it?
stretched,
Yeah.
being
Yeah. Yeah.
curious, and, I think also surrounding yourself with people that really push you,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
out of the comfort zone. I think it's quite common, a lot of common sense around being out of your comfort zone, but we like the comfort of a routine and being in control of everything. But my personal experience has taught me that every time I had to face very, very challenging situations, that's where
Yeah.
the growth
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. A friend of mine said to me, that being an entrepreneur is about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable all the time. And I think there's probably a bit of truth in that, certainly in
Beautiful.
my experience. Let me ask you about the flip side. I mean, all entrepreneurs make mistakes. I mean, we all do it. I
Always.
mean, I've lost track of the number of stupid things I've done. I mean, when you look back, which of the mistakes that, I mean, which are the ones that have hurt the most for you?
Ah, very interesting. That's a very good question. So the mistakes that have hurt the most. Okay, so the first mistake that have hurt me the most has been to think that um, I can make the best decision by myself. So I spend a
Right.
lot of time in my mind, and I'm aware of that. And sometimes I fixate on a problem that I want to solve, and instead of formulating the problem clearly and then speaking to the right people, I try to solve the problem myself. And,
Right. Yeah.
and then I get in, I can get
Yeah, I've
in a
done that. Yeah, yeah.
in a loop. um, and so that's I learned that. So I try to always discuss with the right colleagues the questions. The second thing that has hurt me the most has been trusting the wrong people.
Yeah, I've done that too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's bad.
and I don't
Bad.
regret it, Paul. I think it's very important that we actually put trust, in people and in ourselves, because that's how actually going back to your previous question, that's how you build the trust quickly.
Yeah.
You need to invest in the trust yourself, right?
Yeah, but it's about taking a risk, isn't it?
And
Because
it
you
takes,
never
yeah,
know.
totally. It's a big
Yeah.
risk, and so my biggest challenges, in the past have been really around, dealing with people that I trusted, and also probably not. Yeah, the third mistake connected to that is not acting on the red flags because of. But I can see
Okay.
ex post why I did that. It was out of fear, because I thought that I needed, I couldn't do without that person. I needed that person. I needed that relationship. And I think it's true in life and in business. So I think we cannot really, distinguish the two fields. But I think that's really very, very important. And probably it's connected to our self-awareness. You were talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
authenticity. I think authenticity comes from self-awareness, which we probably we will keep learning until we die, I would imagine.
Yeah. 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 Let me ask you about. I mean, you talked about leaving a corporate job in investment banking and setting up the business. I mean, a lot of people I've spoken to in the past say that's quite a difficult transition, from being an employee to being the CEO. I mean, has that experience changed you in any way?
I'm sure it has changed me in a lot of ways, but trying to pinpoint which ways, that's probably the more difficult part. But yeah, for sure. Um, I mean, we all grow, right?
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
age, with experiences, and I would say that the most important thing that comes to mind is working in large organizations. You really learn very quickly the importance of internal communication. The politics, let's say, of the
Yeah.
large organization. So understanding how to navigate the unwritten rules of behavior, and that was quite challenging for me, and probably the reason why when I left investment banking, I didn't really try really hard to get back into it. So I was I felt like free in that respect. So that's definitely one thing that changed a lot in my behavior. The other thing that I would say has changed a lot is I have grown hugely in courage and confidence because
Right.
of the challenges that,
Yeah.
as you know, as an entrepreneur yourself, Paul, the challenges that you face, sort of really build that sort of
Yeah. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you.
resilience.
Yeah. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes you stronger. And I think that's also connected to, that's another connection to spirituality, because I was educated as a Catholic, and in the Catholic education, we have the concept of, how do you call it? Yeah, so, God sending you help, when you need it. Now the
Right.
word escapes my mind in the
Okay.
flow.
I have to say, I mean, I'm not particularly religious, but I thought the big thing in Catholicism was guilt, but maybe I
Guilt, yeah, that as
misunderstood
well.
that. Maybe I've misunderstood that. I mean, one of the other things you mentioned a bit earlier was the importance of surrounding yourself with good people. I mean, let me ask you, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given? And did you listen to it?
Hmm. Uh, okay, that's a very good question. The best piece of advice, yeah. Okay. I mean, advice is always tricky because you will take the advice because you believe it's the right thing, right? So it's already, so you either do that, you follow the advice because you trust so much the person that you blindly follow what that person tells you to do,
Mm,
or you listen to the advice and then it makes you reflect on
right.
the problem, the situation. But I would say that the best advice always comes from my wife. So
Right.
I would say
That-
that
That's a very diplomatic answer. I'm very impressed with that. To come back to your earlier point though about reflecting on advice and how that can help you sort of work through things. I mean, I certainly share that experience of being given advice that's kind of helped me think more about the problem I'm working on. And it's so that kind of advice that enables you to reflect
yeah,
seems to me to be the best stuff. It's not so much the practical, you must do A, B, and C. It's the stuff that gets you to reflect on the problem and perhaps come at it in a new way that's valuable. Let me ask you the opposite as well. What's the best piece of advice you've ever given? I mean, if you were talking to a rookie CEO, somebody at the beginning of a journey like yours, I mean, what would your advice be?
hmm.
Beyond don't do it.
Ah, I really struggled to come up with the best advice. I think so. Just to answer more broadly, so a couple of situations that I can think of. Um, I believe every entrepreneur, as a human being, wants to be understood, listened to, and feel recognized. And I think I would imagine that the best advice I've given is talking to entrepreneurs, balancing the need for them to sort of understand the situation they're in. If
Mhm.
we think that they need to improve something, but also at the same time recognizing that they're not alone. That
Yeah.
they should have the confidence in themselves and the courage that they always witness, they always show, uh, but making sure that they are totally confident in their own means, because what they're doing, is really so meaningful to them and for
Yeah.
humanity at large. So I would say more broadly, is really infusing and finding that sparkle of courage and confidence anytime you feel that it's coming, it's sort of fading away for any problem or any situation they
Yeah.
might have
Yeah.
in the business or personally.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have heard other people talk about the importance of courage, because quite often you have to stick your neck out, and it requires being a little bit brave sometimes, and that's hard, or can be hard when lots of stuff's at risk. Let me ask you about your legacy. So I know you've come a long way from where you started. I mean, what is it that you're trying to achieve? What is it? How do you think people will leave your legacy when they look back on this in the future?
Yeah, that's a very good question as well. Um, and Very interesting. So the legacy. So, well, I would hope for people to remember me as a good person,
Hmm.
and with positive attributes. And in terms of legacy, I mean, my legacy is I really see that with my family. Now I have two kids,
Hmm.
so my legacy is really the legacy of education that I can leave behind, respecting their uniqueness. Two separate people, but doing my best in terms of sharing my learnings, and making sure that they can grow to be the best people they can become. And in terms of the businesses I'm involved in, yeah, I would hope for EthicalFin, or the Golden Nectar, and the other businesses that we have, to really become examples of how business can be done
Mm.
for the benefit of humanity, not necessarily for the benefit only of the founders or the shareholders.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so really helping a transformation in the way that business and finance operates, so that is in service of the planet and humanity, rather than destroying humanity and nature for profit maximization. So I think that would be really beautiful to see, and hopefully not just for my personal legacy, but more broadly for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of people that don't understand business think that business is all about money. It's all about profit. When I talk to entrepreneurs, I mean it's there. It's very rarely top of their list of things to focus on. Which is
Totally.
it's an odd miss. It's an interesting gap between the perception of a lot of people about what entrepreneurs and businesses are up to, and what entrepreneurs think they're up to. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day who said, business is nothing to do with money. It's all about legacy, because
Yeah,
those are
and which is
ultimately the things that are most important.
Yeah, and Paul, from your questions, I think that's the beauty of this, podcast that you have, is
Mm.
that you make emerge realities that are not necessarily always very, very clear in, the wider audience, out there. People who have no experience of entrepreneurship, or have no experience of how businesses, come about, are created, and are built. And so that's really beautiful to also witness, and
Yeah.
for you to pick, the sort of the experience of so many entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question that's not really about you and your business, but about the world that we're in. I mean, you've got two businesses. I mean, you've got an ethical finance business and you've got an olive farm, right? How do you think? I mean, everyone is talking about AI at the moment. I mean, how
Yes.
do you think AI is going to impact on those two businesses? I mean, my guess is, tell me if I'm wrong, that AI will have very different effects on the ethical finance compared to the olive farm. I mean, what's your take on the way AI is going to change things over the next few years?
Well, I mean, I can tell you already that it's having a huge impact on the businesses, and we are already using AI for both. And so I think it's fundamental. In terms of more broadly answering the question for the sort of the wider market perspective, I can see that on the positive side, you can use AI can really be a huge help in streamlining processes, in making businesses like EthicalFin, so advisory businesses and finance and investment banking, and banking itself, much more streamlined, and reduce the burden on humans, on people, of very repetitive, mundane jobs. The drawback is as I can see already happening, is a significant reduction in the need for employees, and this is already happening with the younger generations, which is, I think, a real shame and a real social problem as well.
Yeah.
On the olive oil side, I must admit that ChatGPT is one of my colleagues also on that front, not only on ethical
And
fin
how do
side.
you, I mean, how
Yeah.
do you use AI in the context of farming olives? I mean, just tell us how that works. I can see how it works with ethical finance because ethical finance is all about the numbers, isn't it? I mean, tell me how it works when it's all about the olives. I mean, just explain that.
You want me to share my secrets with you, Paul?
Well, just give us a, just give
Yeah,
us,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
just give
No,
us
so
a.
it's extremely useful. So I use it for research purposes. So, for instance, I've been using it recently to understand how the quality of our olive oil compares to the market.
Right.
I use it
Okay.
to research very quickly to get summary analysis of what are the practices that have been proven to be more effective to improve the
Right.
quality of olive oil.
Okay.
I've been using it to quickly produce updates for my clients. So I have the ideas and the questions that come to my mind, which actually many of them come from my clients as well. When
Right.
I meet them and they come to me, and so I use AI to quickly source reliable sources of research that can allow me to answer questions around, how to identify high quality olive oil, how to preserve it.
Right.
There's always a question around how safe it is to cook with olive oil in the UK. And so I've done a lot of research on that as well. I've been looking at having help with the positioning of my olive oil within the market. So
Wow.
I share the chemical result and all the analysis
Right.
result of my
Okay.
olive oil to
Yeah.
compare it with other competitors, and so that becomes extremely powerful. And that gave me a lot of confidence on the quality of my olive oil, because I actually realized that it's one of the best. It's actually the best value for money in the UK market on publicly available information.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow, that's impressive. I mean, I've got to say, I mean, thank you for sharing that story, Alessandro. I
sure.
mean, I'm not going to think about olive oil the same way ever again as a result of this conversation, because we use it quite a lot. I mean, I'm a fan of olive oil. So, I mean, thank you for taking time out to come and have a chat with us. That was absolutely fascinating and so interesting to see how you're building two businesses in parallel. I mean, that is a real challenge to conventional wisdom. I mean, people would say,
Yeah,
focus on one thing. You're focusing on two things, which I think is pretty impressive and
I
making
said
really good
five.
progress.
I'm putting on five, Paul. I told you that.
Sorry, you're five. You're right. Yeah, yeah.
Five.
So you've only just talked about the two.
Even
So I'm
more
even more impressed.
mind blowing. Well, maybe even more crazy, to be honest. But
Maybe,
I
maybe.
enjoyed it.
Thanks. I mean, well, thank you for coming along, and I've really enjoyed having you on to chat about it. And good luck going forward. I mean, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the conversation, Paul, and your questions. So thank you.
Cheers. See you again soon, Alessandro.
Yeah, all the best.
Bye bye.